Hi, Bergen alumni and student body. My name is Dr. Reva Kay Williams. I am a theoretical relativistic astrophysicist. I am the nation's first Black female astrophysicist, as opposed to an astronomer. An astrophysicist studies the physics of the universe, and astronomers observe objects in the universe with telescopes. But more importantly, I am the first person to successfully work out the Penrose mechanism to extract energy from a black hole using Einstein's theory of relativity. The Penrose mechanism was first proposed by Roger Penrose, a professor at Oxford University in England. He proposed a way to extract energy from a rotating black hole, but he didn't work it out. So for about 2 decades, scientists over the world attempted to work out the Penrose mechanism with little success, however, making some progress. And so in graduate school, I came along and standing on the shoulders of giants, as Isaac Newton would say, I worked out the Penrose mechanism, and I was the first person to successfully work it out using general relativity. Now, let me share my screen and show you where and explain the Penrose process a little more in a little more detail. Now, this is a artist's conception of a quasar, and this is the observations of a quasar, and this is a very distant quasar. At the time, it was the most distant quasar. So this is the diagram I'm going to use to describe the Penrose mechanism, which is closely to what I was able to calculate and show with mathematics, physics, and a computer simulation. So this is the accretion disk. As you get closer to the black hole, you encounter what we call an ergosphere, coming from the words energy sphere. So as you get closer, once you're inside the ergosphere, then the black hole drags space-time around, and particles that are in orbits around the black hole inside the ergosphere, their energy is increased. And so what you can have, so if a particle is inside the ergosphere, a particle from the accretion disk, say a lower energy particle, can scatter off of these high energy particles and escape back out to infinity, which is very far away from the black hole. And that's the way that energy is extracted. And when these particles escape, they escape in these vortical like orbits looking like tornadoes. And they escape with velocities close to the speed of light. So we call these relativistic particles. And in my case, I got out gamma rays and electron-positron pairs from scattering at what we call the photon orbit. And since these particles are in a plasma form, then the magnetic field would be along the polar axis. Now, this is another diagram drawn by an artist. So this is the black hole here at the center. And then this is space-time being dragged around. This is a picture of a quasar. Quasars belong to the class of active galactic nuclei. So this is an object of what the Penrose process analyzed by me would explain. So these are the jets, and then this is the center. These are jets, in the center would be the black hole. And then this is a jet appearing to be one-sided from a active galactic nuclei. Recently, the Event Horizon Telescope, we're able to observe a black hole. And this is the first picture, and then this is a polarization picture showing how the particles are orbiting in a circular orbit, like I showed you. So it's similar to, or it's consistent with these particles being on vertical orbits because you're looking down the jet. Now, the magnetic field that they observed or inferred or measured was from 1 to 30 Gauss. So this basically rules out the Blanford-Nod type model, because in order to create the particles for the Blanford-Nod type model, which I will talk about briefly later, you would have to have a magnetic field of the order of 10,000 Gauss. So now I want to talk about my journey. And I'm telling you this so that it can inspire you, the ones that are aspiring to be scientists. My journey began while I was working at an insurance company after high school. So I worked at this insurance company for 2 years. However, I was not making enough money for my livelihood without having to get an extra job. And so I was basically struggling. And once we were talking in the break room, and there was a lady there, and she was saying that she had been there 25 years. And I thought to myself, I do not want to be there that long. So I got a calling from God to return to school. That was in February. That following fall semester, I enrolled in Malcolm X Junior College. I knew that I wanted to be a scientist, but I didn't know what field I wanted to pursue my career in. So I majored in math because I love math, and I knew that math was the underlining of any physical scientific field I wanted to pursue. So while pursuing the field that I wanted to study, I read books on how to become a scientist. And when I came in this book, it gave examples of the different scientific fields. So when I came to cosmology, the study of the physics of the universe as a whole, and I wanted to study the physics of the universe, I knew that that was my calling. I believed that God created the universe, and I wanted to find out how he did it scientifically so that I could tell people. So that began my journey to wanting to be an astrophysicist and to pursue my PhD in astrophysics. So while at Malcolm X College, when I started studying, taking physics and studying the different physics laws, physical laws, I fell in love with Einstein and Isaac Newton's laws and theories of gravity and motion. I basically related them to light. And so I wanted to find out more about them. So I fell in love with their physics. So after I graduated from Malcolm X Junior College, I was awarded a fellowship at Northwestern University to study astronomy and physics. So when I got there, the first thing I wanted to do was to study about Einstein and Isaac Newton's lives. So I had the opportunity to do a research paper on Isaac Newton, and then I did a book report um, from the book Einstein, Dr. Einstein and the Universe. So while studying about Einstein and writing my paper and reading this book, I found out that Einstein, when he passed away, the last thing he was doing, he was trying to link the four forces of nature. That is, the strong force inside the nucleus, the electromagnetic force outside the nucleus that binds the electron and the nucleus or the protons. The next force, the third one, is the weak force, which governs radioactivity decay. And then finally, gravity, which kind of stands alone. So by my love for Isaac Newton, Isaac Newton and Einstein, but Einstein, since he was trying to find the unified field theory, and what he was trying to do, he was trying to link electricity and magnetism and gravity. So I felt that I should continue where he left off. So from that point on, that became my passion. And I would take classes that would lead me closer to unifying those forces. So when I became a senior, I had developed I had come up with a way to link electricity and magnetism and gravity. And so I wanted to do that, to develop it when I got in graduate school using general relativity. So after I got in graduate school and I was preparing to do my dissertation, I brought in my theory to my advisor, and I told him I was trying to link electricity and magnetism and gravity, and he immediately said that there was no connection. So, and then he told me that if I tried to do that for my dissertation, that I would never get my degree because it would be too controversial. So I always wanted to do something that was big in astronomy that would contribute to science. And also, when I was at Malcolm X Junior College, I seemed like things were going so well for me. And I decided that based on my belief in God, my faith in God, my belief in myself, and my determination, and my hard working, I felt that I would achieve my dreams and goals of getting my PhD in astrophysics. So I decided that once I get my degree, I was going to write a book and tell other people how to fulfill their dreams and goals. Because along the way, I noticed that people had goals, but a lot of times they didn't fulfill them because of things that occurred in their lives and got them off track. So I wanted to write a book, but first I had to fulfill my dreams and goals. And at the time, it was to get my PhD in astrophysics. And then I asked God to let me do big things in astronomy so that people would listen to me in the book that I was going to write about him and how to achieve your dreams and goals. So, anyway, so I was saying that if I did big things in astronomy, things that other people couldn't do, they would say, well, she was right about these other things that we couldn't explain. So chances are she's right about this. So that was my part of my journey and my compassion. And I felt that I would achieve my dreams and goals if I never gave up. So that was my message to other people, that just like work, have, uh, decide on what you want to do in life and then work hard at it, believe in yourself, believe in God, and be persistent and never give up. So now I'm in graduate school, and so I couldn't write about my theory. So I had thought about quasars being supermassive stars. And then I found that William Fowler, who was a Nobel Prize laureate, that he had worked on supermassive stars. So I duplicated his model on the computer. And when I gave to the part where I would have to generate the jets, it was very confusing. So my advisor told me to write him and also asked him why he had stopped working on supermassive stars. So he wrote me back and I framed the letter. Um, and he said that they didn't live long enough. They could be the progenitors of black holes, but they didn't live long enough to explain quasars. Uh, that is, thus they would be the progenitors of quasars, and that black holes did live long enough. So I knew that that was my only alternative. So I started working on black holes and trying to explain the energy source of quasars and other active nuclei. So the first model I attempted to duplicate was the Blanchard type model. And I worked on that for a while until finally I got to the part where in the physics where I was going to generate the particles in the field, in the magnetic field. And so my advisor and I concluded that you could not generate those particles with the magnetic field of about 10,000 Gauss. And that was the limited magnetic field, the limit of the magnetic field for the accretion disk theory. And in order to generate those particles, the electron-positron pairs, you would have to have a field comparable to a neutron star. So that model didn't work. So my only alternative was the Penrose mechanism. So I started working on the Penrose mechanism. And in the process, I had to solve some equations, trajectories, general relativistic equations for the trajectories of particles that were escaping above and below the equatorial plane. Because our physics at the time were limited to particles that were confined to the equatorial plane. So if I was going to explain the jets, I had to have trajectories for particles that are escaping above and below the equatorial plane. So I solved these equations. Bergen et al. Had solved the equations for particles that are confined to the equatorial plane. And so I just followed their derivation and did it for particles that were escaping above and below the equatorial plane. Now I knew how important these trajectories were, so I put them in my appendix of my paper of my dissertation, and then my 1995 Phys Rev paper, because I knew that they would be important to accretion disk theory, as well as anything that was falling into the event horizon or toward the event horizon of the black hole. So I was successful in extracting energy from the black hole, and I became the first person to successfully work out this mechanism. So that was graduate school. So I was very excited about that. And when I started applying for my postdoctoral positions, that's when I ran across competitors that didn't want me to get credit for my work. And that was because I was a Black female scientist, and I guess they figured, well, she shouldn't be doing this, so we'll just make it so that the public will never know about her. And they started using my work. And the importance of my work was that before I worked out the Penrose mechanism, the accretion disk people, they were making some progress, but they can only come so close to the black hole, because if they came any closer, they would have to use general relativity. And at the time, they didn't know how to use general relativity. So what my work did, there was a gap between the accretion disk people and the relativists. So the relativists were saying we have this supermassive black hole, and we don't know how to get energy out. And the accretion disk theory people, they were at a standstill because they didn't know the physics to go close to the black hole, close enough where general relativity would be important, and that would be inside the ergosphere, where I had done work inside the ergosphere. I had, when I developed or solved those trajectories, I was able to um, do work at the photon orbit, and I was able to extract the electron-positron pairs that observations suggested that they were emerging from the cores of quasars and active galactic nuclei. And so that was the first time that it had ever been done. So, so we had the accretion disk people on one side and the general relativistic people on the other side. So there was a gap. And so my work basically bridged the gap. And so I was thinking and I was believing that I would get credit for it, but I didn't right away. But, that didn't stop me because I continued to do my research because one day I believed that I would get credit for my work. And the only reason why is that I was persistent. If I had given up, when I couldn't get grant proposals, and I mean, when I couldn't get grant money for my research, when I couldn't get my papers published because the people that were working in this area, the ones that were taking credit for my work, it was a small number of people. Just like when Einstein first came to the United States, and the story goes that there were only 10 people that understood his theory. Well, in 1991 and 1992, when I first sent my work to Kipton, there were still a few people that were working in that area. And so when I would apply for grants, for research grants and submit my papers, they had to go through the peer review process. And so my peers were the people that were trying to take credit for my work. So they kept a lot of my papers from being published, but that did not stop me. And what it did, it just made me grow more in knowledge because each time they rejected my paper and told me what I needed to do, then I would do it. So I continued to grow in knowledge. I continued to believe in God that one day I would get credit for my work. And so here I am today getting credit for my work. So this is what I want to tell all of you all that are aspiring scientists, that just believe in yourself, put your faith in God, be persistent, work hard, and don't ever give up. And one day you will be where you desire to be as a successful scientist. And as for me, I'm happy. I know that only God allowed me to get credit for my work, and things are getting better. And I know that the people that took my work, that they are under the wrap. So thank you all very much, and bye.